Neil, we're going to start with you. With your global view of cybercrime, what do you expect the trends in cybercrime to be in the next 5 years?
Thanks very much, Jan. So I think with what we're seeing at the moment, it's clear that cybercrime will increase sort of further, and I think that ongoing increase is going to continue without major international collaboration, and that's kind of both the technical and legal aspects as well. And that's really because the crime itself won't be able to be effectively tackled because it is international in nature, because the internet knows no boundaries. Essentially, it means that cyber criminals can operate from all over the world and usually do operate in countries where it's very hard for their victims or the law enforcement who protects those victims, who serves those victims, to bring them to justice and to put a lid on the problem.
What is the greatest challenge that law enforcement faces in prosecuting cyber criminals?
I think we should just take a step back, and Neil actually started by referring to international cooperation, and that's where I would want to start. Now cybercrime has evolved into a distinctive and a sophisticated crime phenomenon which requires a highly skilled and specialized law enforcement response. And law enforcement agencies and prosecutorial authorities face a number of key challenges in successfully addressing the scourge of cybercrime. I think that's it's not just in South Africa, but all over. So cyber criminals are normally protected by the anonymity that technology offers. It's normally a faceless challenge, a faceless crime, as one of its unique characteristics. What works is intelligence and a prosecution-led, directed, driven approach, and I would think that SAPS and law enforcement on its own will not be able to succeed in order to address cybercrime. Now, stakeholder partnership with law enforcement is extremely important, and I think that this is where the business fraternity can come in and assist the South African Police Service.
Has the Information Regulator seen an increase in data theft in South Africa in the past 12 months? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think data theft and security breaches in the last 12 months, especially considering the fact that we are in the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a ripple effect from that, to say that with the increase of devices, with the increase of traffic on the net, comes an increase of cyber criminals, comes an increase of negligence from employees or people in organizations, how they share their data. People are more loosely using their data. People are very keen to load apps on their phones without looking at the terms and conditions as to what exactly these apps are collecting from you. As you correctly said, it's not about have you been hacked, it's when you'll be hacked.
What is your view on how members of the law society are being impacted by cybercrime? That's something that you have insight of, and I think it'll be valuable for folks watching what you're seeing in your professional sphere.
Thanks very much, Jan. I think in the legal profession, we've had cyber attacks as far back as 2016. And the bulk of the cyber attacks on law firms have been business email compromise. Now, as all industries are aware that we as a legal profession are actually in business, and the influence of the attacks and the veracity of attacks doesn't exclude law firms. In fact, we have always been under the impression that we were easy targets, and there's a number of reasons for that. But one of the two biggest reasons, one is lack of capacity and resources, and the second one is lack of ongoing and continuous education. But The attack can be described simply in terms of the professional indemnity insurance that we offered prior to 2016. From 2016, the profession has excluded cyber attacks from the professional indemnity insurance cover, and practitioners have to buy that separately. And so there's been a ripple, and not a ripple, there's been a compounding impact on legal practices in South Africa.
And sorry to interrupt you, the reason that happened is because of the massive rise in attacks, correct?
Yes, yes, and the quantum of the insurance claims that the Legal Practitioners Insurance Indemnity Fund had to pay out. It still continues today. And the unfortunate thing is that in terms of our law and in terms of our civil regulations is that the unsuspecting members of the public are actually end up losing money if they've put money into the wrong account. And the judgments have said that the individual is responsible to ensure that the account in which they're paying that money into has been verified. So the onus is on the members of the public, you know. And in some instances, it's actually ransomware that has attacked the law firms. One of our local law firms had to pay $1 million in terms of ransomware to get their data back. Now, many of these claims are not reported because you can understand the reputational damage to the institutions and the firms. So in the legal profession, what has been reported and rejected in claims in the last 4 years is over 100 million.
How well prepared are your members to deal with cyber attack currently?
Thanks, Jan. I think it's a difficult thing for all businesses to be adequately prepared. But as I indicated earlier, the law profession members have limited capacity, and in terms of compliance, there's a number of other compliance issues that they have to deal with. So the short answer is I personally do not think they are well prepared for cyber. I think one of the biggest problems they don't do education and training, and they don't have experts reviewing their systems and also the management of data breaches, which is a very specialized and sophisticated thing, managed data breaches and restoration. And I think most industries in South Africa, compared to the rest of the developed world, are still far behind the curve.
These incidences are rising by the numbers. Some people have taken the stance to say, yeah, POPIA is only becoming law on the 1st of July. We're not going to report this. Our reputation is more important to us. I can assure you, we have been receiving breach complaints in the numbers. The register has been increasing, and I must say, especially from the private sector has been very receptive to this. You know, they even contact us, they explain what their breaches are, and we've been guiding them in terms of that. And once organizations accept that now there is a positive duty in terms of POPIA to protect and secure personal information of third parties, I think that is what needs to happen. And people need to understand that self-reporting is the law. It's not a favor, it's not an option, it's the law.
What are the penalties for non-compliance and the result of being a victim of a cyber attack in South Africa?
Okay, so once again, I'm gonna have to make the distinction between data protection and cyber criminality. On the data protection side, if there is a breach or there is a non-compliance with the 8 conditions, as we call them, the 8 POPIA conditions, you can bring a complaint to the regulator, and this complaint will be fully investigated, and if found to be non-compliant or having breached the POPIA, there are fines up to 10 million rand, and in particular instances, it could also be other criminal effects. In other words, it's not just data protection, but on the criminal side, you could be guilty of Section 86.1, the hacking provision, or 86.2, the stealing data unauthorizedly, or manipulating data, or destroying data, or the likes, or even the classic denial of service attack, 86.15. So there's really a lot of laws dealing with this, but I think the issue that we need to grapple with at the moment is capacity. Capacity and awareness and education is the most important thing.
I wanted to talk about the practicality of what you do in the event of a cyber attack. And Brigadier, let's start with you regarding what's the first step? How do you report it? Who do you report it to? Do you open a case with the police? We've got a question from Renier, who says that in his personal experience, he tried to open a case like this at the SA Police, but he didn't have much success. So what's the advice for folks there who have been the victims of a cyber attack?
Jan, the first thing is to ensure that the evidence material is secure. I find a lot of matters being reported to us. By the time it gets to law enforcement, you try to find the evidential material on the instrument. You would normally find that the technician responsible for the company's cybersecurity has removed the evidence. So I think that is quite important, is to don't destroy evidence. In terms of reporting, I think you would find that there would be reporting protocols, online protocols, where people get firstly advice. The creation of the National Cybercrime Center will actually take us a bit further or forward in terms of addressing cybercrime and getting involved in the investigation much sooner than it would be when you report a matter to a police station, for instance.
Well, certainly, in terms of preservation of evidence, what the Brigadier pointed out there is so key. And with a lot of these incidents that are suffered by businesses, they have a real problem because they need to prioritize the recovery, and sometimes they'll prioritize that recovery over the maintenance of evidence. And mostly that is because the people that they're using to do that work are generally IT people that don't appreciate the need to preserve evidence. I think when it comes to actually what does a good incident response service look like, and certainly that's something which we've been doing for many years now, and are developing on with our cybercare service in South Africa, is for businesses to appreciate what they can expect from law enforcement. Law enforcement, just like any crime, have a limited responsibility. They are there to investigate the crime. But they're not really there to, as you've already pointed out, to help the organization recover. And also, law enforcement all over the world, just as in South Africa, are focusing their budget on targeting cyber criminals high up the chain. They want to spend the public money where they can make the biggest difference. And so they're trying to take down the big cyber criminal groups. And that means that they have to focus in those particular areas. And sometimes it means that they have only limited capability to help individual organizations, just like any other crime, not only cybercrime. Mm. Also, we find that IT providers are generally quite unskilled and they're not experienced in helping organizations to respond effectively. And that potentially leaves businesses more exposed to loss. And generally unnecessary loss. That's certainly been our experience over the years. There's, I would say, a limited number of professional services firms able to assist as we do in this particular area. And certainly for many SMMEs, that means that they don't have much available to them. They're challenged in terms of the resources and the offer of support, and often that can be extremely high cost as well. So that's one of the reasons why we've come up with our cyber care model. In terms of what you have to do to be really practical in responding to an incident, well, certainly to have a 24/7 by 365 hotline, to make sure that you've got smooth processes for onboarding and to manage the incident calls, and to have a rapid risk assessment of the client's business operations and their IT environment, to make sure that you've got good incident coordination and that the relevant people in the organization are involved and they are properly advised so that they can make informed decisions, to make sure that you've got the digital investigations expertise, to make sure that you preserve the evidence and you've got a chance to analyze it, to find out how you can contain and how you can eradicate any particular problems on an organization's systems. And then you're in a position to be able to recover effectively and make sure that, for instance, you don't reinfect the system, for instance, if it's with ransomware. To also have a good understanding of the legal environment and the applicable laws. Obviously, it's key that qualified lawyers are involved when it comes to the direct advice, but certainly for an incident response team to have an appreciation of what the aspects of the laws are. That means when you notify to law enforcement, when you notify to the regulators, and if you have to notify to affected data subjects as well, and how you go about doing that in the most effective and timely way. And then obviously the recovery, making sure that you're working with IT providers to build back systems in a really effective manner, and to make sure that they're then resecured so that the organization is no longer exposed in the same way as they were at the outset of the incident. And that's finally what I would say is very important, a post-incident briefing to make sure that the management of the organization, the executives and the technical folk all understand what actually happened and how they can avoid these situations going forward.